Welcome to Live with Lindsay.
I am so excited for today's podcast and YouTube because the love of my life is with me. This is Christopher, my husband, who I shared with you guys when I was 13. And we got back together. I mean, it wasn't like, let's get real. It wasn't this like high school sweetheart story, and we're gonna talk about that. But when we were 13, he literally told me like, I'm gonna marry you. And I was like, what? But lo and behold, he was right. I feel like God was like, yes, this is your person. And I had, a little bit of maturing to do. But I just want to hear, Lord, babe, just tell them a little bit about how we met at 13 and then how we kind of rekindled again.
Yeah, we met when I was a sophomore in high school, and yeah, I did tell you that. I remember that clear as day, and you looked at me like I was crazy and probably wanted to run the exact opposite direction. But no, we met very young. Like you said, it wasn't a high school sweetheart, like stay clean together forever and ever. It was, we left each other's lives for a while, then came back, and then just kind of rekindled what was there. And here we are. So
3 kids later.
3 kids later.
And it's been so cool because, Chris, actually, we both have been able to have like a little getaway for the past 24 hours. And it's just been fun for us to connect because we're busy. We are creating the micro class and we have our 3 kids and he works and I work. And so just to have this connection, like last night we were up and I was like giggling and he's just like, man, I haven't heard you giggle like that in so long. And I just was like, yeah, it just feels good to just be. And one of the things that I always share with women, especially when they're talking about marriage or they're thinking of getting married, is one of the greatest gifts is to be fully known and to be fully loved. Like to be able to know that Chris loves me when I'm all dolled up and having fun and a good attitude, but he also loves me when I'm having a rough day or I feel broken or I'm going through a season of depression. Like he still chooses me and vice versa. Babe, what do you even like to comment on that? Because I think that's something like for our marriage, I'm grateful that we have that, but we work at that.
I would probably say I love you even more when you're not dolled up. Because if you know my wife, anytime she steps a foot out of the house, it's dolled up time and, like hair's big, makeup's on, and clothes are looking great. But I know that when she is, she likes to call herself a troll, like when she looks like a troll, I know that that's only for me, so I actually rather appreciate that more, if that makes sense.
And I love a man who loves a troll, so let me tell you, it just feels so good that when I'm at home, he knows all of me. And I think it's neat, just like Chris said, like, not everyone gets that side of me. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I have to look perfect all the time, but no, I let my hair down. Like I'm, he wakes up, he's the one waking up to my stinky breath, or like, and you choose that person because you love them so much. And, when we were talking about our story, and, Chris met me at 13, and I was vibrant and young, and you guys know that at my life of growing up with my parents, I had the best childhood. So I had a lot of confidence and I was carefree. But when we rekindled and actually started dating again when I was 22, there was a difference in me. And Chris saw that. It was like there was a guard up. And I'm not gonna go into details of what happened between 19 and 22 on this episode. But I will say there were some things that really happened that hurt me. And I mean, Chris, you can even share what that was like reconnecting. And it was the same Lindsay, but there'd been like some damage, I guess?
I wouldn't say you were damaged per se.
Thanks, babe.
But no, we definitely, kind of separated for a little bit, but yeah, we still knew the same people. Yeah. So word would always travel to me and word would always travel to you. So I know that you've been through some rough times, and when we just kind of reconnected, yeah, it's just, I'm not gonna say your attitude was terrible or, you were like, a stick in the mud, not like that. You're still kind of the same and vibrant, but you could tell you had gone through some things, and in all honesty, it kind of broke my heart the fact that I wasn't there for you, but it just wasn't our time to be together. It just wasn't what God had planned out. So, that's it, really.
Yeah. I think like when I look back at those times, I'm like, well, I was 22. Part of the story isn't all mine, but I will say every man I had dated while that time from like my senior year of high school to like being 19 years old, every guy that I had dated, like even if it was like, oh, serious, or we've been together a year, like every man had cheated on me. Every single guy I'd catch with this, sketchy this or sketchy that. So at this point, I was 3 years single, babe. At this point, I was like finishing school, and I had traveled to like Cambodia and Paris and Barcelona and just having fun. And I really wasn't dating much. And then Chris came in my life, and it was just kind of like, I felt like, I mean, he was a godsend. Like, I'm so grateful for him because it allowed me to take a chance again on love and on like trusting a man. But I mean, I always say like he took some beatings, not physically, I did not beat him, but it was like, but like I definitely, he went through some, like I took out a lot of emotional stuff that I'd been working through in my past relationships, in our relationship, and it wasn't fair. And it was a really messy time. But I will say, because like, and you can share this, babe, but like Chris, I feel like had an expedited journey to like manhood or like being responsible, because he had gotten hired at a very young age with the career that he's in. So if you could share a little bit about that, because I think that gives context too, babe.
Oh yeah. As far as our life after high school, we couldn't have been more different. You know, this one went traveling here, there, wherever, and I jumped right into the workforce. Just a couple years out of high school, I got hired with what I do for a living now at 20 years old, and majority of my coworkers were, you know, my parents' age or maybe somewhat younger. So I definitely had to put on like my man pants, like quick and fast, and figure it out. Where it's, you know, this one was frolicking everywhere.
And I was dancing, like I danced, he knows that I grew up dancing. He'd come to like my dance high school shows, and then he ended up going to, I remember he coming to Hollywood and seeing some of my performances there because I was dancing with a choreographer. And you know, that spirit lives in me, and I loved it. But I was also in school, and I was kind of at this place where it was like I was gonna veer into two different places. I was either gonna kind of start to take a chance, you know, on love and to see what God was gonna do there, or I was gonna kind of be more selfish and just be like, I'm just gonna explore. But God kept putting on my heart, like, this was a man I'll never forget sitting at the kitchen counter with my dad, and Chris and I had been kind of dating a little bit, and he was like, hey, like I haven't seen Chris around. I'm like, yeah, I'm just not sure like if it's like too serious or like what we're gonna do. And my dad was like, Lindsay, I just, you know, I've seen you be different, you know, in relationships. And he goes, and there's no other man who looks at you the way Chris looks at you. If there was one man that I'd walk down the aisle, it would be him. And I was just like, whoa. And if you know, there was a lot going on in my life during that time, especially within our family, that I just was like, wow, okay. And I prayed on it, and I just was like, I can't let what we have, like this connection, I felt like God kept bringing us back together, like crossing paths. And I was like, the cross is path. Like the path is crossed. Like, are you going to take this opportunity? Are you going to take that risk like we talked about last week? Are you going to take that risk on this person, even though you've been so hurt? He's never hurt you, but you've been hurt by so many other men. Are you going to take a risk and see what can happen from here? And in our first years of marriage, you know, we moved in together. And I think that was
before marriage.
Before marriage. We were heathens, you guys. No, we moved in before marriage. And I think that's part of our conversation. Again, it's not to shame anyone if what you've done, but we know for us, we look back and we know why people were saying like, that's not a good idea. But at the time, just being so in love, and I honestly was so insecure and like was just like, I want to be around. I was like stage 5 clinger, you guys, but he loves me, thank God. But I just wanted to be around him all the time. His family, what was the song that they would? Mariah Carey. I can't live if living is without you. Yes, that was it. And they would make fun of me because I would just be like on him all the time. Part of it though, of course, is in love with him, but I just wanted to cling. I finally, you know, I'd fallen in love, and I didn't want to be hurt, and I wanted to be around him, which obviously can suffocate a person. But God bless me, it's so much grace. But Chris, I mean, he was able to purchase his own home, and he could have had a full bachelor pad, but instead, you had me move in.
Yeah, I mean, like at the time, you know, it seemed like the perfect thing to do. I mean, you obviously needed somewhere to live, and I was like, oh great, we can live together, and you know, everything seems to be matching up so great. But you know, as we've matured and gotten older, we realize that, you know, maybe it wasn't the greatest idea, because it just put us through so much hardship. And I'm not saying that everyone's gonna have that, you know, experience, but I know for us we did. And also at the same time, I didn't really think about it till like a few years later, but it's like, I think if you live on your own and you get married and you finally live together, it's like that's something that's fun to embrace when like, okay, we can live together, but it was almost like we got married and then when we just went back home, which it's not a big, I know it's kind of like petty to think about like that, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I just, we went through some rough times just trying to make it work.
He's being nice. Like, I was the girl, where's your phone? I was looking at if he was downstairs, who's he texting? Looking at his search engine. Like, I was that girl, okay? I know.
And I want to say for no reason, for extremely no reason.
Well, for you, it was my past that, like, I had so much reason in my past relationships, but he never gave that worry to me. But because I was not healed, I was taking out all this unhealed energy and heartache onto him. And it finally got to a point, which thank God you did this, but I remember it was because I wanted to get married so bad, you guys. Like, I was like, where's my ring? Like, just so desperate. Like, not desperate, but like, I just wanted him, like, desperate. Okay. I was desperate. And he's like, well, babe, I think you need to maybe go to counseling, you know? And I was like, what? He's like, I think you may need to go to talk to someone. Like, I don't think this is necessarily really healthy. That, you know, and he would literally like give me the codes. Like, I knew every password.
And well, I mean, you make it sound really harsh. It's like, I thought that before we do get married, I want you to get over your past, which I was not able to help you with that. Yeah. And so for the most part, I'm like, I don't want to get married with just this still lingering.
Totally.
And it would, because I didn't see it, you know, benefiting either one of us, so that's why I suggested. You make it sound like I'm like, get out.
No, I just was a crazy bird, and he had a lot of grace on me. And you know what? When he said that, though, it made a boundary. Like, he knew his worth, and he also knew, like, I saw him like being like, you're worth more than that too, Lindsay. Like, we are. If we're gonna create a family, we deserve the best. So like, let's get over whatever junk is going on. Let's not take that into a marriage. And so, you know me, I was like, whatever you let me go find a counselor now, you know? So I got myself into counseling, which honestly was really good. And I love, you guys, I love counseling. I'm in and out of it all the time now, but it's a great reflection. It's a mirror. But just to kind of see these parts that are really unhealthy and realizing like, wow, now I know why I'm acting this certain way and how can I remedy that? And part of it is taking action, but part of it too is trusting God and being like, the Lord has brought you this amazing man, and you guys are gonna, you know, you guys want to get married, you want to build a life together, and you need to trust me, right? But I was like clinging and making sure, and God's like, just open it and just surrender this relationship. But there were hard nights, there were hard conversations, and I think because we moved in, I had guilt and shame because all my church friends, like, she moved in. I feel like nowadays it's not even, I mean, it's still a big deal, but like 10 years ago, it was still kind of like, girl, what? You know, like, you're moving in, like the church crowd, and which I totally get why. And so I felt like kind of ashamed, and at that point it was like, where's my ring? Like, I need to have a ring, so at least I'm justified, like, we're living together. And so that created more insecurity in me, more pressure on him. So it was just messy. And even when we got married, like, we got pregnant, you know, pretty quickly. And so it just, again, expedited. So those first, like, few years before marriage and even after, they were rough.
No, I think you hit it right on the head as far as pertaining to what I felt. I definitely felt, pressure, because the way I look at it is like, you are living with me now, so you are no longer, you know, living with your parents and you're on your own. So it's like, I'm responsible for you, which I'm more than happy to do, obviously. But once again, like, I keep putting myself in these situations where it's like, all right, jump in your man pants right away. You have a woman to take care of, to provide for at home. Where, like, I looked at all my friends and they were kind of doing the traveling the world, you know, going from job to job, which doesn't sound wonderful, but like they're experiencing things left and right, you know. And so it was more like, hey, you want to go hang out with us and go here? I'm like, no, I kind of have to take care of my not wife at home. So yeah, no,
always there,
yeah,
lingering.
Always there, and like, you definitely don't want to bring your like pretend wife out with the boys. So it's like, so yeah, it was. I mean, there was pressure. I mean, I look back on it, and maybe it was just like something that wasn't necessary, or maybe could have been handled differently. I mean, I don't regret it if that's what we want to talk about, but yeah, the pressure was definitely there.
Yeah, and I think the beauty though is, when I talk to couples, it's not like, oh, you're doomed, but I think you make things a lot harder. And I think
Definitely, yeah.
we've been together 13 years.
Yes. I like we're saying, it's not impossible. It's just you're choosing a very bumpy road, in my opinion, rather than, you know, a lot cleaner of a experience, if you want to call it that. Because we did have a bumpy road where it wasn't, you know, like we weren't married, and she felt guilty and felt like, you know, I need to be married if we're going to be in this situation, and that's where they had pressure coming from that way. And then I also have pressure to like provide for this home and this woman, and you know, and at the same time, it's like I felt if I didn't, like, we're not married. She could leave anytime she wants. So, you know, it's just, and for being 23, 24 years old, it's just, not a good recipe.
And at that time, babe, like, who knows who they are at 23 and 24? I feel like him and I were still figuring out who we were and who God created us to be. And it's like, to give each other the space to grow into the person and continue to choose. Like, it was just like, it's a lot. And then it was a lot to navigate through. And I look back and I remember my parents sitting me down because they knew I was driving him crazy, but he loved me, thank God. And they sat me down, and again, in my true parents form, they're not like, get out of the house, this is wrong. They were just like, Lindsay, you have made this decision to live with Chris. And if you feel confident that that's the right decision and you've given that to the Lord and you feel good, then be at peace with that and love him and stop doing what you're doing, because you're making, like, it's chaos, you know? Or if you feel in your spirit convicted that you're in the wrong, then get your stuff and move out, and then allow God to, like, you guys can still get married, still be together, but maybe you just need to move out. And I think there was a part of me that felt the conviction, but I did not listen. And I was like, no, I'm staying. And I still drove him a little crazy, but it got better. But I want to share that even like the title of this is Messy to Miraculous. We didn't have this crazy, like one thing happen. It's like these different, you know, the idiosyncrasies of life kind of build up and these different events. But it takes work to be married. You know, it takes work to choose each other.
Even if you did have the perfect storyline, it takes tons of work, obviously from, you know, equal sides. But no, like you said, like we didn't have that, you know, high school sweetheart from when the first time we met, dated until we got married. It was very much like an up and down bumpy road. And I mean, I think that's what kind of makes it all worth it in the end, because we have been through, you know, some good times, some bad times, which made us who we are, and we learned, and you know.
Yeah. No, I think we appreciate what we have.
There you go. That's I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that it makes you look back and appreciate where we are now, because it's like I didn't go through all that stuff to be dealing with this now.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
And now we've been married 9 years, and I will say, you know, I remember sitting with a marriage family therapist, and she was saying, Lindsay, you're going to get married 2 to 3 times in your life. And I was like, and she was a Christian. I was like, who is this woman? And what kind of satanic things is she saying, you know? And she starts laughing, and she's like, no. You will get married 2 to 3 times. You just get to choose if it's the same person. And I was like, what? She goes, this is what happens. This is why you see divorces kind of happen in your early 30s or mid 30s, because you evolve from where you were in your 20s. And so a lot of times infidelity happens, or something happens, and they can't get through that. And the first time you hit that point of, are you going to choose each other, like really choose again, a lot of people can't. They get rocked by it, and I understand it. But when you choose, you have this mature love, like you have a deeper connection. And then again may happen in your 40s, and when it hits, it's still going to hurt. But it's not going to be as bad because it wasn't that initial, like, what are we going through? And no one preps you for this. But then again, you're evolving into this different person. Are you going to continue to choose? And then another 10, 15, maybe 20 years later, it may happen again. But she's explaining this is why some people get married 2 to 3 times, because they're always looking, I'm a new evolved person, and I'm going to find another new evolved person. Instead of saying, God, you're both, you created both of us in this covenant, and we're going to continue to choose to show up together as a team. And so even in our years, babe, like I feel we've been in a good rhythm, but it's taken, we've had counseling, we've done like mentors, I don't know, there's no shame in that. So I think for you too, I mean, I think it's been beneficial for our relationship to have those extra like Christian perspectives to pour into us as well.
No, definitely. I think it's normal to go back to the drawing board every once in a while. And it's like, you're gonna be in these moments or these phases where you guys are like, everything's mellow, everything's cruising, and it's great. The kids are doing great, you're doing great, and everything's hunky-dory. But then, you know, right around the corner, like bam, as it hits you in the face, you're going to be in a mess. And it's like, do you want to clean up the mess, or do you want to find somewhere or someone else to start a new mess? And so I think it shows, you know, your commitment. And I think that's the biggest thing with marriage, is that you got to understand, and I think this from a man's standpoint, is that you've made a commitment before God and your family, and, you know, to be committed to this person. And like, what does that mean? Like, are you true to your word, or are you not? Are you going to run away at the first sight of something that's not going your way? Which, you know, that's not the way it goes for me. But yeah, I remember you told me that story about being married multiple times. I'm like, okay, that's weird. But then you explained it, and it's true. You do have to choose your, you know, husband or your wife multiple times in your life. Yeah. And, you know, and nowadays when it's so easy, like, oh yeah, this one's old, I want a new one. You know, it's like, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's like you have that option, but, you know, what you choose shows like who you are.
Totally. And I think we live in a society where it's been made so easy to be like, oh, just get married, or oh, just divorce, you know?
Yeah.
And again, there are even biblically sound reasons to get a divorce, but I think so many people aren't willing to put in that risk for the reward. Like, I'm gonna risk actually showing my true colors, or risk actually telling my husband, like, I'm not okay, or we need help here. So babe, I can't thank you enough for we're gonna have a few more episodes with my husband. But thank you for sharing, because I know I'm very protective over our family, and so are you, and we don't share all details of things, but I think it's important for other couples, and it helps us when people have shared what they've gone through, and just to know, like, at the end of the day, like, keeping each other, like, your priority. Like, he is my number one relationship on earth, right? God, and then it's my husband. And it's like, you have to keep that order in your home, and then you'll start to see, like, little things that were messy at one point become miracles. So thank you, babe, and we'll be back next week. Love you guys.